What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fight Dialogue. My name is Tim. This is Ask Me Anything 16. It's been a while since I did an Ask Me Anything. Let me know in the comments if the video and the audio is good so that we can get started here. Thank you for joining me. Like I said, been a while since we did the Ask Me Anything. Let me know if you can hear me. Also, if you're hopping on, make sure to like the video. And we're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff today. Even though this is an Ask Me Anything, Random says all good. Thank you, Random. Even though this is an Ask Me Anything, I usually start off the stream kind of talking about some random stuff that might be happening here and there throughout the combat sports community. And there's definitely some stuff, some breaking news to talk about as well. And some fight cards that I want to kind of highlight a little bit. And while I'm doing that, you can fill your questions up into the chat, and I will get to those in the second half of the video. So here we go. First and foremost, Beneil Dariush is out. He is injured, and he can no longer fight Islam Makhachev, is the breaking news, I guess you could say. And this is a huge blow, not just to that card, but to Islam's career in a way, because, and I'm going to get to Beneil Dariush himself because he is the one that got injured. But the biggest thing about this fight with Beneil Dariush is that it was someone who's actually like a threat to him in terms of grappling, okay? He's fought a lot of very talented strikers, very tough guys, but most of them did not pose much of a threat to him on the ground. The only one that you could say like definitely gave him a run for his money in terms of grappling is Arman Tsarukyan. And Tsarukyan is great. He's a really, really talented prospect on the cusp of contendership, but yeah, Beneil is a different story. He's got fantastic striking, super aggressive striking, knockout power, and the ability to submit a lot of great guys. He pretty much submitted Tony Ferguson, and Tony Ferguson is a fantastic grappler. If Tony Ferguson wasn't tough as nails and he didn't just allow his leg to get twisted into a pretzel, if that was anybody else, they would have tapped. Beneil is a killer on the mat. Different style than Islam, which is kind of what makes it interesting. So a lot of the criticism directed at Islam throughout his most recent career, I guess you could say, is that he has not fought the best guys. He clearly wants the title shot. He wants to assume the place that Khabib vacated, and a lot of people think that he has the skills to do that. I'm one of them. I love Islam Makhachev. I think he's really, really talented. One of the best grapplers in the division, if not the best. But yeah, Beneil is a legitimate challenge to that. So I was really looking forward to this fight. I even was thinking about doing a video about Beneil Dariush's grappling, since I've already made one about Islam Makhachev's grappling. And the early concept of it, Beneil's pretty close in terms of score, overall score. So I thought it was going to come down to a striking battle. I thought Beneil was going to really test Islam on the feet before he decided to grapple with him. But now here we are. So who is Islam going to be fighting? I don't think it's set in stone yet, but I heard rumors that he could be fighting Gregor Gillespie, and I heard even stronger rumors that he could be fighting Bobby Green. A lot of people like the Bobby Green fight. It's okay. I'm not crazy about it. At least Islam still gets a fight, which I'm okay with, but rather than scrapping the whole thing and just having them fight at a different date, It'd still be cool to fight or to have Islam and Beneil fight again at some point. I'm not aware of the extent of Dariush's injury, so I don't know how quickly he can be back. So it's up in the air. Yeah, though the Bobby Green fight, it doesn't really do anything to me. I think Islam is going to do what he's done to most guys, which is take him down, control him, and eventually submit him. Bobby Green has good wrestling, but he doesn't use it very often. He obviously has very, very good striking, but yeah, I don't know. I don't like that fight as much. The Gregor Gillespie fight really intrigues me because Gregor is an amazing wrestler. He claims to be the best in the division in terms of his wrestling skills. So I was interested to see how those two would match up. I've been interested in that matchup for a while. So yeah, I don't know which way they're going to go. They're probably going to go towards the Bobby Green path, but I'm not sure if the fact that Bobby Green just fought will get in the way of that. I'm not sure if he's on some type of medical suspension. I know he didn't get knocked out or hurt that badly, but sometimes, when you're in a 3-round fight, you take a couple shots, the athletic commissions don't medically clear you for another 3 months or something like that. I can't remember how many times I've watched a card and then I look up the medical suspensions afterwards, and the guys who won their fights are on medical suspensions, and it doesn't even seem like they were hit all that hard. So who knows if that's going to play a part in whether or not Bobby Green gets the fight. If he does not, I would definitely love to see the Gregor Gillespie fight. And if you guys want, we can talk more about the Islam Makhachev card debacle a little bit later on. If you fill up the chat with questions about that, that's fine. But I'm going to move on for now because I've got a pretty big announcement. I mean, it's pretty big for this channel. I'm pretty excited about it. I will be in attendance for Bellator 274 this weekend. I'll be CAGESIDE. And, it's not the biggest event in the world. It's probably the equivalent of like a UFC fight night in terms of like the level of fighters that are on the card. It's headlined by Neiman Gracie and Logan Storley. And if you're not familiar with Neiman Gracie, obviously part of the Gracie family, he's got fantastic jiu-jitsu, and he's arguably one of the best Gracies to ever do it in MMA. I mean, he's got a record of 11-2. He's only ever lost to the champion. I forget who he fought. He fought for the belt somewhat recently. I think he fought Douglas Lima or Rory McDonald. I forget who he fought. I got to look that up. But and he's coming off a knockout win. I mean, how many Gracies have knockout wins? So yeah, I'm really excited about it. The last MMA fight that I went to personally was before the pandemic. And a little insight into how this works is, if you're a member of the media or if you have like a YouTube channel like I do or something like that, you basically go onto their website, find what event you want, and you apply for credentials to get into that event. And I've been doing that for a long time. And because of the pandemic, at least that's the reason they gave me, haven't been able to do it. It's been much, much harder to get credentials into these events. So this is the first time it's been happening for me since 2019. Super stoked. If you've never seen a MMA fight or a combat sporting event live, it's a completely different experience. With that being said, I would still argue that the best way to watch a fight is through the television because you get all the best angles and this and that. But in terms of like the surreal experience of it, when you hear those leg kicks land, it's something else. When you see the blood and the sweat flying all over the place, it's crazy. When you can hear the fighters talking to each other, if they're talking to each other, in the middle of the cage, it's a crazy experience. And then of course the vibes of the crowd and everything, very, very cool. And the last time I went to an event, Gracie actually sat right in front of me. So get to see some cool characters while I'm there. And have no doubt I'm going to bring the camera with me. I'm going to try to get some post-fight interviews with some of the fighters, which I'm sure I'll be able to do. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be fun. And but other than that, I think I'll just post some stuff on the Instagram, post some stuff on the YouTube shorts of me at the event, snap some pictures, and just enjoy the fights and have fun. But yeah, if you are interested, definitely watch that card, Bellator 274. That's a pretty good main event. Neiman Gracie, like I said, very talented, great jiu-jitsu. And Logan Storley, he's actually got a win over Joaquin Buckley. I was looking up his record before. He's got really, really good wrestling, nice ground and pound. It'll be an interesting fight. So I think Neiman might end up submitting him just because he's going to play right into that game of taking Neiman down, and Neiman's going to submit him off his back. But we'll see. It'll be fun. What else we got? UFC Fight Night taking place this weekend. And it's actually on the same date as the Bellator event. So I won't be watching it live. You know, I'm not going to pull a Dana White and be watching other fights while I got a fight right in front of me. But what is it? It was supposed to be headlined by someone else, I believe, and then the fight got canceled. So now they moved Johnny Walker versus Jamal Hill up to the main event. That's right. It was supposed to be RDA versus Fiziev. And I was super stoked about that fight, but I think Fiziev had some issues with his visa, so they had to move the fight to a later date. It's actually going to be the co-main event on the UFC 272 pay-per-view, which I'm very excited about. Fiziev, he's got a lot of momentum, a lot of hype around him, and RDA is a legend. So I want to see how those guys match up against each other. They both have fantastic striking. I think Dos Anjos definitely has the advantage in terms of grappling and also overall experience in MMA, without a doubt. So it'll be interesting to see. But the main event for this fight night coming up, it's not too bad. You know, Johnny Walker, when he's on, man. He's really exciting. He's got some unorthodox movement, very explosive, very big for the division. But he suffered some losses that really made him change his style. And also he's training with John Kavanagh in SBG Ireland the last time I checked. At least he was for his last fight. And it seemed like John Kavanagh definitely toned him down a bit. He definitely is making Johnny Walker fight smarter. But in the last fight, it was actually another main event for a fight night. I think it was against Thiago Santos. Very, very conservative. Just wasn't pulling the trigger enough. So I'm hoping those two extreme examples of what not to do in a fight even themselves out here for Johnny Walker, and we see his true potential in this fight against Jamal Hill. Because when Johnny Walker came to the scene, like, some people were looking at him as like the next guy to beat John Jones. And then, of course, that hype train got derailed very quickly. But still, the talent is there. The skills are there. He just has to execute in the right manner, which I think is Johnny Walker's main problem. So we'll see how he does against Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill, he's good, man. He's got power. He's got a knockout win against Ovince St. Preux, I believe. That Paul Craig armbar was super nasty, but it just shows his toughness. You know, he didn't tap, let his arm break. So I don't know if he has to worry about anything like that against Johnny Walker. To my knowledge, Johnny Walker's not that good of a grappler. He's more of a striker, a Muay Thai guy. So Jamal Hill, he's definitely going to want to utilize his jab in this fight. Because even though Johnny Walker, you know, he's like a big, lengthy guy, he kind of explodes into range and stuff. I think he does his best work in the clinch with his elbows and his knees, you know, i.e. his fight against Khalil Roundtree. So, and when he knocked out Serkinov, it was, I think it was a flying knee. Might have been, I'm pretty sure it was a flying knee. But still, right up in Serkinov's face, jumped into it. So Jamal Hill is going to want to, keep his distance, really use footwork, and avoid the explosiveness and the clinch of Johnny Walker. There's a couple other notable fights on that card. Chris Daukaus, I think his name is, the middleweight brother of the other Daukaus that just got knocked out by Derek Lewis. He's fighting a fellow named Pickett. That's the co-main event. Got a heavyweight fight between Porter and Badeau. Jim Miller returns against a Contender Series fighter named Mota. And Joaquin Buckley's on this card versus Al Hassan. So not a bad fight night. I'll probably catch it after the Bellator fight. But it's looking like fun. So that pretty much does it for everything that I wanted to talk about to start off the live stream. So guys, whatever questions you have, I'm going to answer them now. Keep them coming because I will do my very best to answer every single question you guys have. I've got until about 1 o'clock, so I got a good 40 minutes to answer all your questions. If you haven't liked the video yet, please like it. If you're new here, subscribe. I do live streams like this from time to time, but mostly do breakdowns, analysis, and podcast. So join the fun. All right, where's the first question at? Argenpour says, first of all, it's time to see you again live, of course. Just feeling sad for Islam. It's not his fault that the top contenders don't want to fight him or if Dariush is injured. Yeah, man. Very disappointing, just like I said a while ago. I hope Islam gets a really top-level guy because whether he goes into his... Because I think it's inevitable that he's going to fight for a title at some point. But I want him to fight for that title with the experience of fighting a top-level guy. That was one of the big problems at flyweight for a while, for a lot of the contenders in flyweight. They would go on a 2-fight win streak against guys that weren't really contenders and then get thrown in there into the title fight right away and get beat up before they were ready. You know what I mean? The whole, in theory, on paper, the whole hierarchy system of rankings is so that you can build your way up slowly but surely. And by the time you actually face the champion, you have the experience to back it up and validate it. So that's kind of been Islam's problem. And I hope by the time he does get his title shot that he's actually ready for it. And the only way you get ready for something like that is by fighting the very best guys before you get to the championship. So we'll see what happens there. Lucas Acevedo says, how are you, my man? Who do you think has the best ground and pound in MMA currently? Good to see you, Lucas. The best ground and pound in MMA currently. Well, if you watch my Khabib video, he's the only guy that I gave a 10 out of 10. But Khabib's retired now, so I can't remember who I've given the best score to so far. When I look at ground and pound, I don't look at the guys that can cause damage from the top. I mean, I do, but that's not the only thing I look at. I look at the guys that can also deal damage from the bottom, because that's a lost art, man. There's not a lot of guys that know how to do that and do it well. And there's guys who have won fights from, slicing elbows from the bottom and, the guy gets cut and then the next thing you know, the doctor's stopping the fight. And Tony Ferguson comes to mind when I think of that because he's got vicious ground and pound from the top and the bottom. If you go back and watch his fight with Josh Thompson, that fight was insane. And he cut Josh Thompson really badly with elbows from the bottom, elbows from the top. And in terms of the ladies, go back and watch my fight or my breakdown of Weili Zhang's ground and pound. Seriously. The only thing stopping me from giving her the perfect score of 10 in that breakdown was the fact that she hasn't fought like the best girls in the world. and gotten them to the ground to use her ground and pound. Like we saw it briefly in her most recent fight with Rose Namajunas. Granted, I made the video before that fight, but when she got Rose to the ground in that second fight, she did land some good ground and pound. And then if you look at every other girl she's fought in the UFC and before the UFC, she has obliterated them with ground and pound. She gets an inside or outside trip from the clinch, as she's so good at doing. And then from the top position, she just fucking wrecks people. She has the best ground and pound in women's MMA easily. And I would just like to see her against some higher level competition to see how that ground and pound translates to those women. But I hope that answers your question. Okay, Random says, how will Gaethje versus Oliveira play out in your opinion? How would the matchup between the winner of the title fight and Islam go? Good question. Sometimes I forget that matchup is coming in the near future. Oliveira, if you take all his weaknesses that he's shown throughout his career and you put them on the table and you say, here, these are Oliveira's weaknesses, and then you do the same thing for Gaethje and you say, here are Gaethje's weaknesses. I think that Oliveira has more weaknesses. There's more weaknesses to exploit, just in terms of numbers, in terms of what you can do to him in the striking department and what you can do to him in the grappling department. He's a guy that's been knocked out. He's a guy that's been exhausted. He's a guy that's been submitted. He's a guy that's been controlled on the ground. But ultimately, he's found a way to make it work. And he's improved upon some of those weaknesses. I'm not saying all those weaknesses are still present. I'm just saying that's what's happened to him in the past. He's definitely improved on some of them, but not all of them, I don't think. Particularly in the striking department when it comes to his defense. I think there's still something to be desired there for his defense. And here we have Justin Gaethje, who, whatever weaknesses he has, they're really based around the grappling department. And it's not easy to get him to the ground. It's just not. Khabib had to walk through fire to get him to the ground, man. Khabib got hit in that fight with Justin Gaethje. He got leg kicked. He got punched square in the face. But Khabib is a lunatic with an amazing chin. And he just bull rushed his way through it and took Justin Gaethje down. And Justin Gaethje is not used to that type of pressure because he's the one that's usually pressuring guys. So that really screwed him up in that fight with Khabib. Once it gets to the ground, and once you're able to control Gaethje, he has one glaring weakness, and that is his submission defense. Okay? He gives up his back a lot. I mean, he's your stereotypical wrestler that bellies down to try to get back up. And against Oliveira, man, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble in that regard. But it's going to all come down to if this fight goes to the ground. And if it does, how does it get there? How does it get there? Does Oliveira find a way to take Justin Gaethje down? It won't be easy for him, but I think Oliveira is capable of it. Or will Justin Gaethje find the weaknesses within Charles Oliveira's striking, knock him down, and then will he finish him on the ground? Or will Oliveira, like he's done time and time and again, get rocked, get knocked down, the guy gets on top of him, he ties them up, and then he goes for the submission? That's what it's going to come down to. But even though I think Justin Gaethje has more ways to win and more weaknesses to exploit, that submission defense category is so bad going into this fight. Against anybody else, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But because it's Charles Oliveira and because his submissions are so goddamn dangerous, he is easily the best submission artist in the lightweight division. He's arguably the best in MMA right now. So when you go in there with the propensity for getting choked out, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to pick Oliveira for that fight. I think Oliveira wins. I'm not super confident in that pick, but there it is. And how do I think he does against Islam? Well, I think that's the thing that we're all most interested in seeing, right? Because, you know, it's kind of a meme at this point, but we all wanted to see Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson. We didn't get it. What's the next best thing, or arguably better? Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira. So there that is. And when it comes to that fight, I think Islam wins that fight. I think his submission defense is good enough to hold off against Charles Oliveira. Now, I didn't give him the best score in the world when I took a look at Islam's grappling. You know, there are some weaknesses there. You know, he's been caught in arm bars, triangles before. So he's not immune to submissions, but I think it's a strong enough area of his game to where it's not going to play that much of a factor in the Charles Oliveira fight. And if Charles Oliveira is smart, he'll try to strike with Islam. He'll try to test him on the feet. Because in terms of his offense, Charles Oliveira has very good striking, you know, as we've seen in his most recent fights. So, yeah, I've got Oliveira beating Gaethje, but I think that Islam can edge it out against Charles Oliveira. Nabash, I would rather see a Gregor versus Islam. Bobby Green definitely deserves to fight another ranked opponent, though. Yeah, and I'm in the same boat as you because stylistically, that's a much more intriguing matchup, Islam versus Gregor. And I think that might be one of the few fights where Islam would have the striking advantage going into that. So it would be interesting to see Islam take another approach to a fight for a change, you know? Cannot the Great, welcome, my friend. Proteus says, Bellator's got some great stuff. Yes, I agree. Random says, I think Gregor said something about needing a full camp and not taking short notice fights. Yeah, I don't blame him, especially against a guy like Islam. You know, Gregor was undefeated for a while, and then when he got knocked out by Kevin Lee, you know, that I'm sure that sucked. And he had to build his way back up out of that hole, you know, with a couple wins. Argenpour says, John Jones and Derek Lewis have the best ground and pound in MMA currently. Of course, Derek isn't the best at taking people down. I'm only talking about when, for whatever reason, he is on top. Yeah, his power and his punching skills definitely are transferable to ground and pound. But one of the main keys to ground and pound is control. That's why I put it in the grappling videos rather than the striking videos, because you need to be a better grappler than you are a striker in order to have effective ground and pound, as weird as that sounds. Because you got to hold the guy in place. You got to stop him from escaping. And landing a few shots as the guy stands up and gets out doesn't exactly count unless you have the knockout power to finish it in one shot, which Derek Lewis does. So that's why it kind of works out for him more often than not. But yeah, you got to have that control aspect. And that is something that John Jones definitely has. You are correct. He's got some excellent ground and pound. And in my opinion, the best elbows from the top position. Argenpour says, last one from me. Did you watch the wrestling match between Khamzat and Hermansson? I did, and I think Khamzat is not a 3-5 rounder. He was not the same wrestler in the second round and seemed tired. I only watched highlights of it. And Jack Hermansson's a big dude. You know, Khamzat is a guy that can cut down to 170. Hermansson is not. he drains himself a lot to get to 185. He's, very barrel-chested, very big guy. So that could have been why Khamzat seemed a little bit more tired. Like I said, I only saw the highlights, so I can't say for certain. But that would be an interesting thing, because we've only seen him finish fights very quickly. So if he fights a durable guy with good submission defense, how will that fight look, as we get into the third, fourth, fifth round, We shall see. Lucas Acevedo. It's safe to say Fiziev is the best striker in the lightweight division? ? He might be. I don't know. It's hard, man, because lightweight is so stacked, especially with strikers. When Fiziev fought Bobby Green, Bobby Green's really, really good, but I think it was a split decision. I think one of the judges scored it for Bobby Green. So, I don't know. That Brad Riddell fight was impressive. It was impressive that he knocked him out like that, but he was also the former training partner of Brad Riddell. So did Fiziev know something about Brad Riddell? Did he know about a weakness of his that he otherwise would not have known if he wasn't his former training partner? I don't know. But if that was the case, that fight with Brad Riddell may not be a true representation of how good his striking is. And I know that sounds like I'm being critical of Fiziev, but you have to kind of take things like that into account and take things like that with a grain of salt. I think he's probably top 3 best strikers in the division. I'll give you that. Random thoughts on the Glover versus Yuri Prochazka fight. Ooh, oh my goodness. In the past 3 or 4 fights with Glover Teixeira, I have bet the house on Glover's opponents. Figuratively. I'm not a bettor in real life. I'm bad luck. But and it's a good thing I'm not a bettor, because I would have lost all of those bets. Glover has surprised everybody. His chin, it doesn't hold up the way it used to. Not surprisingly, for a guy his age that's been fighting for as long as he has. And his solution to that problem has been to use his superior grappling. He's got really good wrestling. He's got really good jiu-jitsu. And he has devastating ground and pound. Devastating. We've heard the comparison of, Khabib Nurmagomedov being like a bear, just like a bear getting you to the ground and mauling you. If Khabib's ground and pound is the equivalent of a bear, then Glover Teixeira's ground and pound is the equivalent of a fucking rhinoceros trampling you to death. Because that dude has run over his past few opponents. Just completely ran them over. Took them down, got on top of them, beat the shit out of them, and in the case of Blachowicz, submitted him. He softens you up with those punches, and then it's pretty much over from there. He can finish the fight in whatever way he wants, but the ground and pound is what initiates it. And even though his chin is not what it used to be, and some would say is like his biggest weakness, including me, I would say that's his biggest weakness, his striking is still good. The fucking guy still hits hard. He's got fantastic boxing, And it's a shame that it's a shame for him that John Jones was the champion when he was, because I think if Glover became champion around the time that he fought John Jones, if it was anybody else but John Jones, I think Glover Teixeira would have won that fight. And I think Glover would have been this champion that cleaned out the division. Maybe. You know, he did get knocked out pretty badly a couple times after that John Jones fight, with the reemergence of gentlemen named Rumble Johnson and Alexander Gustafsson. But still, Glover's very, very skilled, very experienced, and that ground game is scary. As soon as he got the mount on Blachowicz, I was like, oh no. Like, I was just like, my goodness, it's over. It's over, because that guy is a beast on top. That is a terrifying man to have in the mount position. Now let's talk about Yuri Prochazka. Guy's had, 3 fights in the UFC? Maybe 3 fights? Maybe 2 fights? I can only seem to remember the Oezdemir and the Reyes fight. If he fought another time besides that, I can't remember it. But anyway, he's very unorthodox in every sense. He's very big for the division, very tall, very lanky. He's got awkward movement. He hits hard, and he hits you from a lot of different angles, you know. But I would say his chin is a little suspect. He got rocked in the Oezdemir fight, and he got rocked in the Reyes fight. Reyes took him down, too. Reyes took him down, and I just watched the fight the other day. They were stuck in half guard. Yuri Prochazka didn't have any kind of dominant gripping or anything going on for him. And Reyes was he was landing some shots, but for the most part, it was just lay and pray. You know, Reyes looked like he was trying to build his energy back up. And Prochazka just bridged, exploded, and got back up to his feet. You're not going to do that against Glover Teixeira. I don't care how fucking big you are. You're not going to do that against Glover Teixeira. If Glover Teixeira gets Yuri Prochazka to the ground, he is going to fuck him up. He's going to fuck him up. With that being said, though, Glover has not fought a striker like Yuri. He's got sick power, and he's super weird. And he might not be able to predict the strikes that are coming at him. You know, because one of the benefits of Glover's experience at this point is he kind of knows how guys are going to counter him. He knows how guys are going to try to counter his grappling. And he uses his experience to avoid that, get into the clinch, take the guy down. Yuri might throw something wild at him that he doesn't see coming, clips him before he even gets the chance to get into the clinch, and finishes him off. So I don't know. I really don't know who's going to win that fight. But like I said, I've been betting against Glover Teixeira for a long time now. I think it's time that I go with Glover for once. So Glover Teixeira, I would say, wins that fight. And if you're just joining us, thank you. Welcome. Make sure to like the video. I'm trucking through these questions here. What about Jack Daniels? I don't really drink. When I do, rum and Coke is pretty good. So yeah, I like Jack Daniels. I don't know if that was a joke about Johnny Walker or what. But how do you think John Jones will do at heavyweight? Depends on who he fights. It depends on who he fights. If they stick him up against a guy that plays into his style perfectly, I think he'll do quite well. You know, I think he would do well against Derek Lewis. You know, he's got the length and the kicks and the jabs and all that good stuff to stay away from Derek Lewis. And if it comes to it, he can get all the way in, grapple with him, take him to the ground, and then he has the grappling advantage. The Stipe fight is interesting. I think that's the one that intrigues me the most. But you know what? The Ciryl Gane fight is intriguing to me now as well. And even though Jones would have the grappling advantage in that fight, And if Francis took Cyril Gane down, then I think Jon Jones can definitely take Cyril Gane down. But you'll also notice that in the Cyril Gane fight against Francis, he showed off some really, really good and technical ground and pound defense. Every time Francis tried to utilize his ground strikes, Cyril got out. He swam to half guard. He went out the back door. He stood up. Showed some really, really good ground and pound defense in that fight. So I don't think it would be easy for Jones to finish him on the ground. That fight is really, really intriguing to me, though, stylistically. I still think Jon Jones would probably win, but yeah. I think the Francis fight is tough. You know, I think Francis could knock Jon Jones out. I think he could. I think he's explosive enough. He can cover the distance quickly enough. And his grappling game is obviously improving, you know. So I got videos on all those guys. Check them out. Decide for yourself. I think he would do well, but it depends on who he fights. I should have worn my glasses. I can't see shit. Okay, casually covered. Were you surprised when everyone ignored a genius idea by Mike Perry to sell corner spots? Fighters don't need 4 coaches on their corner or in their corner, and I feel like people would pay a lot of money for those spots. You're right in the sense that guys probably don't need 4 cornermen. But to have a random person do it, I don't know if that's the way either. Mike Perry's he's an interesting character. And while he's obviously done something right to get to where he's at in life, I don't know if he's the best role model to be taking advice from, especially when it comes to MMA strategy, you know, because he's lacking there, if you ask me. But hey, if you're trying to make money, that's a great idea. Sure. Hashtag LanFBX. People seem to forget that Chandler gave his back to Oliveira and he didn't do shit. Well, depends on what you mean by didn't do shit. He didn't submit him. You're absolutely right. But simply giving up position can lose you the fight, you know? It can cause you to take unnecessary damage. It can cause you to be almost submitted, and then the judges take that into account, you know, because that counts as a fighter trying to finish the fight, you know? And while I'm impressed with Michael Chandler that he was able to fight off the rear naked choke of Charles Oliveira, he didn't, I mean, if you look at how he did it, he wasn't super technical about it. He tried slamming him. He tried exploding out. You know, eventually he got out, but he wasted a lot of energy doing it. And if he had never given up his back in the first place, that's energy saved, you know? So giving up your back is a bad thing, even if you don't get submitted, is the point I'm trying to make. Casually covered adds that Chandler's submission defense is legit. It's certainly legit. It's certainly legit. But still. Chandler has never been subbed. Is that true? I don't know. I don't have his record in front of me. If not, you know, that's impressive. Eric Gould. What's up, Eric? Do they test a fighter's vision during pre-fight medicals? If so, how does Oliveira get by with his vision so impaired? I don't know, man. I was talking to my wife about that the other day because I showed her the picture of, I don't know how true it is, but it was a picture on Instagram showing like a person looking at their phone in a first-person view, and like everything is super blurry. And it says, this is what Charles Oliveira sees according to an eye doctor. And if that's true, holy fuck, man. Because it's just like blurry blobs and blurry shapes. There's no definition. And it would be really, really hard to make out a fast-moving object like a fist or a kick coming at your head. So if Charles Oliveira is a champion with that kind of vision, I can only imagine what a fucking Terminator he would be with perfect vision. I think Bisping on his channel said that they do pre-fight screenings. They give basic physicals, and they do eye tests. But obviously, they're not that fucking good if Bisping passed them and if Charles is passing them. So maybe they need to redo that, because as much as I like those fighters, it's about fighter safety. You don't want to see anybody get hurt. Professor Chaos says Islam is OP. We'll see. We'll see when he gets to the top 5 or the top 3. Guys talking between each other. Proteus asks, who wins between Diaz and Poirier? Nate Diaz and Poirier. I got Poirier. Nate Diaz, he's a good fighter and always will be, but he doesn't fight frequently enough to reliably have a chance against those top tier guys, Even at 170, I think Poirier would be better at 170, honestly. What do I think about Yair? Asks Lucas Acevedo. I think he made some good improvements in his boxing offense. I believe it was pretty bad before. How far can he go in his career? Woo. Yair is awesome. Yair is fantastic. That fight against Max Holloway was one of the best fights of the year. Was that in January that happened? When did that take place? Guys, when did Yair fight Max Holloway? If that was in 2022, that's a fight of the year candidate already. I think you're right. I think he's worked on his boxing a bit. And he's worked on his cardio also, because that was a big question going into that Max fight. Is Max, he's got top-notch pressure, top-notch volume, and he's done more 5-rounders than we can count at this point. Yair, he had the 1 5-round fight with Korean Zombie, but otherwise tends to gas out in those longer fights. But he went all 5 rounds with Max. And yeah, he did slow down a little bit in the 4th and 5th round, but he still stayed offensive. I think he's leveling out. I think he's really leveling out. I think in his earlier career, it was all about the flashy kicks and stuff. And then, and now he's being a lot more technical. He's got more fight IQ, or better fight IQ, I should say. I think he could be champion someday. He's still young. And he's still improving. I like Yair Rodriguez. Who wins the Pena versus Nunes rematch? That's from L. Who do I think wins that fight? I think that Nunes is going to have a different approach in this fight. I don't think she's going to so willingly engage in a brawl with Juliana. And I think that was the most surprising thing about that fight, is that Juliana can hang with Amanda in the pocket. She can eat her punches. Not a lot of women can say that at 135 or 145. And when you have the ability to take some punishment and fire back, that changes the fight dramatically. And we saw it. Because whether it's Amanda Nunes that initiates the brawl or her opponent, in the case of the Cyborg fight, her opponents have been unable to withstand the punishment that she deals back. And so I don't blame Nunes for putting everything she had into those strikes. Could she have been more technical about it and more efficient about it? Yeah. But when you get used to getting in those brawls and then coming out with your hand raised, I guess it's a habit that gets formed. But I think going into the rematch, she's going to be a lot smarter. She's going to be harder to take down, harder to put on the ground. And that's ultimately what Juliana needs to finish the fight. She hurt Amanda with her punches, but I don't think she can finish Amanda with her strikes. I just don't. She needs that grappling to finish the fight. And if she can't get her to the ground, she's not going to finish the fight. Could she still win in a straight-up striking match? Probably not. Probably not if Amanda adjusts her strategy and does the right thing this time around. I'll say what I said in the lead up to their first fight. Because now that I'm reasonably confident that Amanda Nunes will be smarter going into the rematch, I think my prediction for their first fight is more suiting now. And my prediction for that fight is, if Juliana is going to win, it'll be by eking out a decision, by pushing Amanda up against the fence, holding her there, and landing knees. Just throwing knees, And I think she could pick up a few rounds that way, maybe even 3 rounds, and then get a split decision win. But other than that, Amanda should be able to pick her apart in a striking engagement and win either by decision or by finishing her with strikes. I'm going to pick Amanda Nunes in the rematch. So, yeah. But who knows? I definitely didn't expect to see what happened in their first fight. So, Lord only knows what happens in the second fight. Random, how good do you think Leon's defensive grappling is now when you're thinking about a fight against Usman? He fought Usman once, and that fight is probably the most important when it comes to judging his skill in that area. He showed good ground and pound defense. He showed good submission defense, but he could not get up. He couldn't get up, and every time he did, he got put right back down. And yeah, that fight was a while ago, but we have not seen him tested in that area since that fight. So I can only assume it's the same for now. I'm not going to assume that he got better. I'm not going to do that. We have to go into this, into his next fight, assuming that he's still, the way to beat him is probably still to take him down and hold him down. So I don't like his chances in the rematch with Usman. Even though I think he's definitely deserving of it, I don't think he'll win. What do we got? Glover will wreck Yuri. And that's from the Conscientious Objector. Maybe. Nabash, do you think that cardio is the key to Glover's success? It seems like it doesn't matter how many takedown attempts he fails, he will just continue until he gets you down. Yes, absolutely. And that's what makes Khabib so dangerous. Because if you look at Khabib's actual takedown skills, he's very, very good, but he's not the best. He does not have the best takedowns. But he has very good takedowns mixed with some of the best cardio. So he can try, and eventually you'll get tired, and eventually he'll get you down. It's not a matter of if, but of when, and you can make that comparison with Glover for sure. All right, guys, I got maybe like 15 more minutes where I can answer questions here, so I'm going to try to blast through them. I spent a little bit too much time answering some of the earlier ones, so bear with me. I do apologize. But here we go. Let's do this. Random. If Yair versus Ortega happens, who do I got? I can't remember how good Yair is against like submission heavy guys. Can't remember him ever having to really defend submissions. Ortega can take the punishment that Yair is dishing out. We all know that by now. So I think eventually Ortega gets him to the ground and submits him. Proteus. Oh, no, he's talking to somebody else. Okay, Proteus. Yuri's style is karate-ish. Yeah, he's kind of light on his feet. He's got his hands low, a lot of weird movement, but I think Yuri has a style of his own. Very, very awkward. Glover by TKO submission. Yuri's problem is the defense, not the chin. And that's from hashtag LanFBX. Yeah, I think you might be correct in that. I mean, he got rocked in his fights, but that's because he was just so off, put off guard by those punches, that Uzdemir and Reyes landed. It's the punches that you don't see coming that hurts you the most, So maybe you're right. Maybe it's his defense or the lack thereof. L says, I want to learn Muay Thai, boxing, and BJJ as a beginner. Should I do all three disciplines in my first week at the gym? From my personal experience, Muay Thai and boxing take a lot more out of you in terms of energy. So it's kind of like weightlifting. Not that I've done that much of that over the years, but one of the problems that I personally have had with weightlifting is I go into it like, yeah, let's fucking do this. I'm going to lift weights. I'm going to get strong, blah, blah, blah. And I do way too much on the first day. And the next day, I'm exhausted. All my muscles hurt, and I don't want to do it again, And then that lasts into the third day. And then maybe by the next day, maybe I'll lift weights again. But then I do the same stupid shit again, and I'm like, oh, I haven't gone to the gym in 3 days. I really need to hit it hard this time, and then I tire myself out again, Whereas if you just went a little bit easier each day, you could actually get more reps in throughout the week. Fighting and training can be like that sometimes. You got to find a balance. And like I said, in my experience, Muay Thai and pretty much any kind of striking really takes it out of me more than grappling does. So I think it's a good idea to do that, to do all three of those within a week, but maybe not all three of those within a day, because your body's not going to be able to handle it, especially if you're a beginner. You got to space it out a little bit. Give your body time to recover. Am I the only one that thinks Glover might beat Yuri and then Rakic beats Glover? That's from Mr. Blackmore. I forgot about Rakic. He's a good fighter. I think what you're saying might be based on a hunch, though, because I haven't seen Rakic do anything that would indicate that he can definitely beat Glover. You know what I mean? I'm not putting it past him. I'm not saying he can't, but there's nothing that he's done in his fight so far where I'm like, yep, that's going to be the bane of Glover Teixeira. Like, I just don't see that. So we'll see. Rakic is still a really good contender. And to your point, I do think that Glover has it in him to beat Yuri, as I stated before. So we shall see. Islam versus Olives. I already talked about that, but I think Islam will win that fight, Mr. TK. Mr. Blackmore, do you know DeChirico? He seems like a cool dude, but he seems to never express his full potential. Do you think he's going to get cut? I don't know, man. He lost his last fight, right? He got finished in his last fight, but the fight before that, he knocked out Joaquin Buckley, I think, with a head kick. I think that's what happened. So unless the UFC has something against him, I think he can continue into the UFC. We've seen that finishing potential, so if the UFC recognizes that, they'll let him stick around. Proteus says the Max versus Yair fight was this year. Yeah, Yeah, that's a fight of the year so far in my book. Nabash. Bisbing and olives are living proof that vision doesn't matter for fighting. The Jedi knew it for centuries. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're using the Force or what, but Bisbing always said it was because it was his rear eye that was fucked up, not his lead eye. So if he's in orthodox stance, his left eye would be his lead eye. So he could still pretty much see everything coming. I would imagine that his peripherals were fucked up, and I definitely know that your depth perception gets fucked up when you can only see out of one eye. But I don't know, man. They got something going on that's crazy, because it doesn't make sense to be that good at fighting when you can't fucking see. Casually covered. Is Peter Yan pound for pound the pound for pound king? Except for prime TJ, I can't see anyone beating him. Usman would definitely lose against him. Pound for pound. The pound for pound conversations are hard to have, because a lot of these fighters get their skills and base their skills around their size and around their body type. You know what I mean? So if Usman was smaller, would he fight the same way? If everybody was the same size, would they fight the same way as they do now? I don't know. The pound for pound questions are hard to answer. The pound for pound rankings don't make sense to me, because I get the general concept of it. It's like, okay, if everybody was the same size, who would win in a fight? But like I said, that's so hard to determine. I think the best way to determine the pound for pound best fighters is with open weight classes like they used to have in Pride. In my book, the best pound for pound fighters are the guys that fought in multiple different weight classes. One of the best pound for pound fighters of all time is BJ Penn. The guy fought in fucking 5 different weight classes. Kenny Florian fought in 4 or 5 different weight classes in the UFC. Who else? Kazushi Sakuraba. The dude fought fucking heavyweights most of his career, and he's like a lightweight. That is the best way of determining who the pound for pound best is, in my opinion. And I understand that you can't, be doing that. It's hard to have an open weight match take place because athletic commissions will shoot it down for the most part. But yeah, that's what I think of when I think of pound for pound. Everything else is so speculative. It's almost not even worth it to have the conversation, in my opinion. But thanks for the question, though. Akira Joe 1997. Was Khabib a weight bully, in your opinion? I don't know exactly how much Khabib cut, but I know he had a hard time doing it. And maybe it was because he had teammates in welterweight. Nah, probably not. Because Usman wasn't champion for that long when Khabib was fighting. I don't know. He kind of is. But there's a lot of weight bullies. I don't think that's a rarity in MMA, especially amongst champions. If Khabib's a weight bully, then Usman's a weight bully. He's huge. He's fucking huge for welterweight. John Jones is fucking massive for light heavyweight. That's why he's making the move to regular heavyweight. Everybody's a weight bully in the sport. Everybody is, because everybody wants the path of least resistance. They want to be bigger than the guy that they're fighting because it's easier in most cases. #LanFBX. Acne, big muscles with great cardio. Do you think Usman could be on PEDs? I did read his brother is a good pharmacist. If so, do you think the UFC would cover it up to protect the company's image? I wouldn't put it past the UFC to do any kind of fuckery. They've done it before. They did it with Vitor. And I don't think it has to do with image. because the UFC has been, their image has been tarnished and then rebuilt so many times. They could, it could get tarnished and then they'll just build it back up again. But what they care about most is money, They would definitely try to hide it if it came down to, is Usman going to make us a lot of money in this next pay-per-view? You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely wouldn't put it past them to hide something. And yeah, there's definitely ways around the testing, unfortunately, because I like to see the sport as clean as possible. Could Usman be on PEDs? Probably. Or he was at one time. That doesn't really change my opinion of him. I still think he's a really, really good fighter, and he's a nice guy. But, yeah, he could be. Lucas Acevedo, last couple questions, guys. Lucas Acevedo, do you believe Gordon Ryan will fight MMA in the future? He has to figure out his issues with his stomach. And last I checked, they are getting better. And I think he has a super fight against Andre Galvao soon. And that's actually taking place in ONE FC. I think he will have an MMA career. I just don't think it'll be very, very long or very noteworthy. I think he'll be one of those jiu-jitsu guys that crosses over for 1 or 2 fights, wins one, loses one, and then retires. He just doesn't seem as committed to the MMA thing as he is the jiu-jitsu thing. But he's still a young guy, so who knows? Maybe I'm just spitballing here. I don't know. Buchecha is 2-0 in ONE FC right now. Gary Tonin is going to be fighting for a title soon. Those guys, very, very interesting. If you want to see the top level jiu-jitsu guys in the world fighting in MMA, watch ONE FC because they have a fair handful of them. Are you going to make a video about John's striking? And right now, without thinking too much about it, would you score his striking? Where would I score his striking from 1 to 10? I definitely plan on doing a video on his striking. I planned on doing it when and if they announce his debut heavyweight match. That's usually, the best time to get views and stuff is when their name is trending. So if that fight gets announced, I'll probably drop everything and start making that video. What do I think his score would be? It would probably be high 8, maybe even low 9. Probably high 8. Yeah, like a high 8. Probably like around what I scored Cyril Gane at. I don't know what the fuck I scored him. Like at 8.7 or something. That sounds about right. But I don't know for sure until I really, study the tape. But yeah. What's up, Rajarshi? Welcome. Let me answer your question here. Akira Joe, I'll answer yours real quick. Khabib versus Colby. I pick Colby in that fight because he's got better striking and he's bigger. Okay, Rajarshi, Chuck Borti. As someone who actually trains and is passionate about this sport, what do you think should be the punishment for cheating? I think people like Jones should have been banned for life. You gotta punish them where it hurts the most, and that's in their pocketbook, man. I know that suspending people can hurt their pocketbook, and their finances, because if they're not fighting, they're not making money. But I think hefty fines is a good way to go. And the richer the guy is, just fine him more. I don't know. It's so hard to... There's no real solution right now that I can see. I want cheating to stop, and I want cheating to be punished, especially because we're talking about not just, win bonuses and all this stuff, but we're talking about fighter safety. You know what I mean? It's not hitting a ball. It's not throwing a ball. It's not shooting a puck. You're fighting somebody, The more strength you give yourself and the more physical prowess you obtain through cheating, the more likely you will be to hurt your opponent. And I think that's a serious issue. Hope that answers your question. Okay, 2 more questions. In your opinion, is Lovato the biggest wasted talent in the recent MMA history, in the sense that he had to retire even though he was extremely successful and retired early? Yeah, man. I was super depressed for Rafael Lovato Jr. because he became Bellator champion, you know? Super successful jiu-jitsu career, went into MMA, was undefeated. I'm pretty sure was undefeated, became the middleweight champion, had to retire because some fucked up shit with his brain that nobody knows how to cure. Yeah, he's absolutely an example of one of the biggest wasted talents. But he's still doing jiu-jitsu at least, so, and he's still fucking nasty at it too. So at least he can still compete. It's not like, you know, he was paralyzed or something and now he can't even like move. So at least he still gets to live his life, live out the rest of his, you know, adult life competing and stuff like that. Last question from the same guy. You mean John's striking? I think that because of the fact that he doesn't have great power or particularly good movement, it would be an 8.4 or 8.5. Yeah, like I said, I got to go into it and really study the tape. But based on just the success he's had and the success that he's had against other really good strikers, I'm kind of just like imagining a very high 8 score. But I won't know for sure until I really go back and look at everything. So yeah, guys, that is it. That was the first Ask Me Anything in a while. I am going to work now, but I will be at the Bellator 274 this weekend. And make sure to follow us on Instagram and stuff. And obviously subscribe to the channel because I'm going to be posting stuff on YouTube Shorts and the Instagram of me at the venue, watching the fights and stuff. It'd be a lot of fun. And then, of course, you'll see some videos about that upcoming. I'm working on a lot of stuff right now, guys, simultaneously, so I apologize that some of the videos are coming a little bit slower, but I'm working on Jorge Masvidal grappling right now, which I'll definitely have done before his next fight against Colby Covington, and I'm also working on the new series, which is called How Good Was This Finish? And the first one is already done. It is in early access on the Patreon and on channel memberships. It is about Nick Diaz versus Takanori Gomi. I basically do the same thing that I do with How Good Is Their Striking and How Good Is Their Grappling. I go into that finishing sequence. I break it down technically. I talk about it, and I give a grade on how good it was. And that's the first one. And the next one I'm working on is Dominic Reyes versus Yuri Prochazka and the spinning elbow that he landed, which was fucking awesome. So that'll be the next one. That'll be on the Patreon and the channel memberships in early access for all tiers. Make sure to check that out, because not only do you get early access to that, you get access to a bunch of other crap that is pretty interesting, and some of my training videos. You get access to the mega contest and stuff with the Discord, and obviously it just supports the channel and helps me out a lot. Trying to get a new camera. This one's a little fuzzy. I don't like it. But got to get a new camera. Got to get a new mic so I can build this channel up a little bit. So help me out, y'all. Okay, beyond that, I don't have anything else. Make sure to like the video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.